I want to start off by giving all praise to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, peace and blessings to the elect. This is Zakaria from the GMS Dallas camp, and I had a lesson I wanted to do as concerning the rosary beads. As you see the picture in the background, I'm going to jump right into the scriptures. I'm going to read from Matthew chapter 6, and I'm going to start at verse 7. Matthew chapter 6 and 7, but when ye pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. I'm going to read that one more time. Matthew 6 and 7, but when ye pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. And I wanted to bring that out because that is what the rosary bead is for. These people are using these rosary beads as a counter for each prayer. For example, like you see on the rosaries, I think it's maybe 100 beads on there, for example, and they keep track of each prayer as far as like the Hail Mary and the Our Father prayers. They keep track. And I wanted to show that this comes from a pagan origin, and I have an article up that I'm going to read for you. It's called The Pagan Origin of the Rosary Beads, and it states, rosary beads come in all shapes, colors, sizes, and quality. Some rosaries are strung with pearl, crystal, wood, and even plastic. But where did the ritual of the rosary come from, and what exactly is the significance of the rosary beads? The rosary, in the simplest terms, is said to be a tool used to aid prayer and meditation. The beads of a rosary count the prayers as they are recited out loud or in the mind. The user relies on the rosary beads to keep track of how many times you've said a particular prayer. Most commonly recognized in the United States as a symbol of Catholicism, other religions including Buddhism, Hinduism, paganism, and Islam employ the rosary beads as well. So this custom comes from a pagan origin, but you see our people engulfed in all these different pagan origins and bringing it in the disguise of the church, under the disguise of Jesus. And I'm going to try to, if it's the Lord's will, I'm going to try to point out a lot of these different things that they're using to, cloak this paganism and feed to our people under the disguise of Jesus. And I'm going to keep reading from this article. Prayer beads and rosaries are really another form of the witch's ladder, which is another thing the brothers could look up. A knotted rope or cord used to count repetitions during a spell or a ritual. So that's really where it came from. You had pagans performing rituals using those beads to count those different, witch's ladder prayers and rituals and things like that. So as they said their prayers to whatever demon that they're praying to, they would count them. That's really the origin of it. Reading on, prayer beads originated with the Hindu faith using beads for devotions. This dates to the 8th century BC in the cult of Shiva. In India, sandstone sculptures, statues circa 185 BC show Hindus with prayer beads. The names of Hindu gods and prayers were repeated on string beads called the mala, separated by larger or different colored beads. So this is just giving you a good background of where this came from. This isn't something that originates at the time of Peter in Antioch or nothing along those lines. This is straight from pagan culture. Hindu converts kept their traditional use of prayer beads. Buddhist monks always carry a strand of prayer beads or rosary, usually of 108 beads. And continuing on, prayer beads are used by Hindus, Buddhists, Muslims, and Catholics, among others. Often when religions sought converts, they allowed them to retain some of their pagan ways, and that should remind you of that, like things like the Council of Nicaea, when they brought in all these different pagan customs to allow everyone to come together under the disguise of Christianity. Allow them to retain some of their pagan ways, ceremonial garb, heathen rituals, and traditions in order to add to their numbers. This led to spiritual pollution, obviously. Before the 12th century BC, rosaries were used for talismans as amulet or occult charms. Rosaries and prayer beads are intended by the Catholic Church hierarchy for use by the ignorant. Pagans had used prayer beads even before the 8th century, before Christ, and they still use them today. So yeah, I wanted to just point this out as just another deception under the disguise of Jesus that's going on with our people. Our people are engulfed in all this madness. And if you are reading the scriptures, and if the Most High through His Son is dealing with you, you'll come across these scriptures and you'll question all those things that are going on in that church. And I'm going to get another precept real quick. 1 Thessalonians, and I'm going to start at verse 16. Actually 15. See that none render evil for evil unto any man, but ever follow that which is good, both among yourselves and to all men. And here's the points. Verse 16, rejoice evermore. And verse 17, pray without ceasing. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You don't need to count how many prayers that you're sending up to the Most High. There's no number. You don't need to count. And as Matthew 6 talked about, you're not supposed to use no vain repetition, saying the same prayer over and over and you having to keep count of it. That's all against the will of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. 1 Thessalonians 5 and 17 says, pray without ceasing. You need not keep a number. You need not keep a count. You need to have a relationship with Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua in truth. And if not, you'll be wrapped up under all these Jesus deceptions. And with that, Shalom.